For 15 years, Jake Murphy had been flying freight runs across the Outer Rim. In that time, he had seen mining colonies that had been abandoned, ghost ships floating through empty space, and whole planetary outposts that had been left to rot after their resources ran out. But nothing could have prepared him for what he found in Sector 7G. The station was like a forgotten monument in the dark. According to the old registry files, it was Crossroads Haven. It must have been impressive at one time, when traders and miners filled its docking bays and merchants sold their goods in the hallways. Now it was just a dark shape against the stars, still and lifeless. Jake wasn't interested in the station itself, though. It was what was around it. There was an asteroid belt in all directions, and the rocks sparkled with minerals that caught the light from the sun far away. Jake had moved enough ore in his life to know when he saw good land. This belt was very valuable, maybe the most valuable he had ever seen. And in the middle of it all was an empty space station that no one wanted. Jake took a sip of his coffee and leaned back in his pilot seat. He didn't pay much attention to the fact that the liquid was warm and bitter. His mind was already going over the options. "Charlie," he said to the ship's computer, "get the records of who owns that station." The computer took a short break while it looked through the databases. Jake had spent 3 months fixing up the system after getting it from a crashed courier ship, so Charlie wasn't the most advanced AI out there. He could trust the AI, which was more than he could say for most of the expensive models that businesses sold. "Records show that the station was abandoned about 15 years ago," Charlie said in his calm, synthetic voice. "Previous owner was the Velthorian Merchant Guild. The Galactic Commerce Registry says that foreclosed property is now available for purchase." Jake straightened up. "Can I buy it? How much do you want?" 50,000 credits. Jake really did choke on his coffee. He coughed and sputtered, then wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "Say that again?" "The price to buy is 50,000 credits. 50,000 credits. Last year, Jake paid more than that to have his ship's engine fixed. He had seen cargo shuttles that were in worse shape sell for 3 times that much. Even a broken space station should have been worth millions. There was something very wrong here. "Charlie, what's the deal? Why is it so cheap?" The AI took a moment to think before answering. "Records from the station show that all systems are badly damaged. Life support is not working at all. The structural integrity is about 42%. The docking mechanisms don't work. All navigation systems are broken. The power grid has failed. The previous owner filled out paperwork saying the property was a total loss. The Velthorian Merchant Guild gave up on the station because the cost of repairs was higher than what they thought it would be worth." Jake looked out the window of his cockpit at the dark station. Most people would have lost interest right away after hearing that list of problems. A damaged station was basically just scrap metal floating in space. Repairs would cost a lot of money. It would take years of work. And there was no way to know for sure that the station could be made profitable again after all that work. But Jake Murphy was not like most people. He grew up poor on a farming colony that was having a hard time, so nothing was ever easy for him. His grandfather had shown him how to fix machines with spare parts and hard work. His father had taught him that hard work could turn bad situations into good ones. Jake had spent his whole adult life fixing things that were broken so they could be used again. That was how he started his freight business from scratch. Jake saw potential in what other people thought was a useless wreck. He saw a station in the middle of an asteroid belt full of minerals. He saw the only building that was probably 50 light-years away in any direction. He saw a place that could become a center for independent miners and traders if someone was willing to work hard. He could still hear his grandfather's voice in his head. "One man's trash is another man's treasure, boy. Always keep that in mind." Jake put down his coffee cup and looked at his money records. He had been saving money for years, slowly building up a nest egg from his freight runs. The total was 38,000 credits. Not quite enough, but close. The Earth Colonial Bank might be able to give him a loan for the rest. They had programs for people who wanted to start businesses in new areas. It was dangerous. He would lose everything if the station couldn't be fixed. If he couldn't make his loan payments, he might lose his savings, his reputation, and even his ship. But the possible reward was huge. A working station in this area could help all the independent operators who work the belt. Not to mention repairs, supplies, and docking fees, fuel sales alone would be profitable. Jake had never been the type to play it safe. Safe was dull. Safe was working in a factory on Earth until you died. He had come to the Outer Rim to build something and show that a normal person could make it on the frontier by working hard and making smart choices. This was his big break. Charlie set a course for the closest Commerce Registry office. I have to fill out some forms. Jake, I feel like I have to tell you that buying this station is a big financial risk. It is hard to figure out how likely it is that the restoration will be successful because of how bad the damage is. Jake smiled. The AI had been given rules for assessing risk, which made Charlie worry like an old accountant at times. I know the risks, friend, but I also know when to take advantage of a chance. Sometimes you have to take a chance. As you wish. The course has been set. It will take us about 6 hours to get to the registry office at New Terra Station. Jake pushed the throttle forward, and his ship turned away from the abandoned station. He kept looking back at Crossroads Haven in his rear display as he sped up toward the jump point. The station looked like it had been left behind and forgotten. But not for long. 3 weeks later, Jake was in the Galactic Commerce Registry office on New Terra Station. The building was made of chrome and glass and was full of different kinds of people doing business. The person in charge of his case was a Velthorian, one of the insect-like aliens who used to own the station. The clerk looked at Jake with what could have been amusement, but it was hard to tell because she had compound eyes. The Velthorian asked, "You know this station is uninhabitable, right?" His voice came through a translator. "Yes, I know," Jake said. "And you know that the cost of repairs will probably be 10 times or more the cost of the item?" "I understand that too." Jake knew that the clerk's antennae twitching was the Velthorian way of saying no. "Your kind still interests me. This kind of hope in the face of clear financial disaster is something only humans can do." Jake just smiled. "We don't call it optimism, we call it vision." The clerk took the payment, transferred the deed, and gave Jake a data chip with all the station records and access codes on it. "Mr. Murphy, the property is now legally yours. Good luck. You will need it." Jake took the chip and shook the alien's hand, or something like it. "Thank you. When I get the place up and running, I'll send you a postcard." Jake felt the weight of what he had just done as he left the office. He had used up all of his credit and taken out a loan that would take years to pay off. He now owned a broken space station that was in the middle of nowhere. People would probably say he was crazy. But Jake Murphy didn't care much about what other people thought. He had a plan and the skills to carry it out. He just needed time and a lot of hard work now. He smiled as he walked back to his ship. It's time to get to work. 2 years had gone by since Jake Murphy signed the papers and became the owner of Crossroads Haven. 2 years of hard work, constant repairs, and more problems than he could count. Jake felt very happy as he stood in the command center and looked out at the busy docking bays and the constant flow of ships coming and going. He really did it. The station came back to life. The change had been slow and hard. The first 6 months were the hardest. Jake lived on his ship because most of the station was still empty. He worked 16 hours a day, sometimes longer, crawling through access tunnels and rewiring systems by hand. He could only use tools that he could find in the wreckage or trade for at nearby outposts. He became very close to duct tape and wire. He made his own replacement parts in the machine shop when he couldn't find the right ones. He had to fix the machine before he could even use it. But little by little, each part of the station came back to life. He first got life support working in the main areas. After that, he turned the power back on in the docking bays. He repaired the water recyclers, sealed up holes in the hull, and rebuilt the navigation systems. He spent all of his credit on repairs and upgrades. Word started to spread along the frontier. There was a person in charge of a station in Sector 7G. The prices were fair. The repairs were fair. No one asked you any uncomfortable questions about your cargo or where you came from. That kind of place was worth its weight in gold to independent traders and miners who worked on the rough edges of civilized space. Jake didn't do it by himself. About 8 months later, a rough-looking mechanic named Tom Briggs came looking for work. Tom had worked for 20 years to keep mining equipment running before his boss went out of business and left him with nothing. He was useful, good at what he did, and didn't mind getting his hands dirty. Jake hired him right away, and Tom became his right-hand man. Then Lisa Martinez showed up. She had been cooking for a Navy mess hall, where she served the same boring, standard meals to officers who never thanked her for her hard work. She heard about the station after her contract was up and decided to take a chance. Jake gave her a corner of the main concourse and whatever tools he could find. In just 3 months, her small restaurant became the most popular place on the station. Lisa didn't serve the usual food at the station. She put a hydroponics garden in one of the empty cargo bays and grew real vegetables with fake lights. She got Jake to turn another part of the property into a small farm where they raised chickens and even a few pigs. Lisa brought in real earth-grown beans for the coffee at a huge cost. The meat was real, the vegetables were fresh, and the coffee was real. But it was worth it. People who were trading would add days to their trips just to stop at Crossroads Haven and eat a good meal. People talked about the restaurant for years. After 3 months in the belt, miners would go right to Lisa's for a real steak and fresh salad. People came in just for the coffee, and then they stayed for repairs, gas, and supplies. Jake was in charge of a group of 12 people 2 years later. Tom Briggs was in charge of the mechanical work, and 5 other technicians worked in shifts around the clock. Lisa had hired 2 helpers and made her restaurant bigger. There was a small medical bay with a doctor who was tired of working for a big company. There were 6 different vendors in the market section, selling everything from spare parts to personal items. The bar was open 20 hours a day and served drinks to crews from 12 different species. Crossroads Haven had turned out to be exactly what Jake had hoped for. A place where good people could get what they deserved. A town in the middle of nowhere. Jake was going over navigation charts with Charlie when Tom's voice came through the comm system. "Boss, there's a problem at Dock 7. Jake looked away from the screen. "What kind of problem?" "Ship just got shot to hell. Damage to the hull and problems with the engine make it look like they barely made it here. The captain says they ran into pirates near the Red Line Nebula." Jake frowned. Pirates were known to hang out in the Red Line Nebula. Ships went through there because it saved time on some routes, but it was dangerous. "Who's in charge?" "Vex is a Karathi trader. As far as I can tell, he's carrying machine parts, which is legal cargo. But here's the deal, boss. He says he can't pay for repairs in advance. His accounts are empty." That made sense if he had just gotten away from pirates. They probably took all the money he had on him. Jake walked over to the window that looked out over the docking bays. From here, he could see Dock 7. There was a small freighter sitting there that was scarred and battered, with damage clearly visible on the port side. "Will he be able to pay?" Jake asked. After a moment, Tom's voice came back. "He says he has a cargo run planned for New Adelaide. The client is waiting for these parts to arrive. He says he can pay us in full within 2 weeks of finishing the delivery." Jake thought about it for 3 seconds. "Repair his ship. Put it on your account." There was a pause on the other end. Jake could almost hear Tom's thoughts. "Jake, this is the 3rd ship we've run on credit this month. If these accounts start to go bad..." "Have any of them gone bad yet?" Another break. "No. Everyone has paid what they promised to pay. Then we keep doing what we're doing. Tom, these people are just trying to make a living on their own. Things don't always go as planned. Pirates, broken machines, and bad luck. If we only help people who can pay cash up front, we're just as bad as the corporate stations that take all of your money." Tom sighed, but Jake could tell he agreed. "You are in charge. I'll have the crew take care of it. In about 18 hours, he should be ready to go into space." "Okay. What about Tom? While he waits, make sure Captain Vex gets a hot meal. Tell him to go to Lisa's house and put it on my tab." "Sure thing." Jake went back to the navigation charts, but he wasn't really thinking about them anymore. Jake knew that when Charlie's lights blinked, it meant the AI was getting ready to say something. "Jake, I need to remind you that giving customers credit is a financial risk. If even a small number of these accounts don't pay, it could have a big effect on our cash flow. I know the risks, Charlie. But I also know something else. People don't forget who helped them when they were in trouble. Captain Vex will remember that we fixed his ship even though he couldn't pay us. He will let other traders know. People will hear that Murphy's station looks out for people. That is an asset that can't be seen. Hard to put a dollar value on. Jake smiled. Maybe. But reputation is very important out here on the frontier. If you treat people well, they will come back. They tell their friends about it. Even if it means going a little out of their way, they still choose your station over the competition. That is worth more than getting every last penny out of someone who is already having a bad day. That's an interesting way of thinking. I will keep an eye on the results. Jake's method worked over and over again in the months that followed. It took Captain Vex 11 days to pay his bill in full, not even the full 2 weeks he had asked for. He also told other Karathi traders that Crossroads Haven was a safe place to dock. There were more Karathi ships coming in. When a mining crew that Jake had praised struck a rich vein and could finally pay their bill, they brought him a case of expensive whiskey as a thank you gift. He gave free housing to a family of refugees while their ship was being fixed, and they wrote to him for years after that. They told everyone they met about the kind human station operator. The name got bigger. People began to call him Fair Deal Murphy. Some animals thought his business methods were odd. A Velthorian inspector came by once and spent an hour asking Jake why he charged less than the going rate for services. The inspector said, "You could charge 40% more for repairs to the hull and fuel," and he was really confused. 50 light years away is the closest competitor. Basic economics says you should try to make as much money as possible. Jake had just given a shrug. I charge enough to cover my costs and make a fair profit. Why would I charge people more than I have to? The translator for the inspector made clicking sounds that were hard to understand. Your kind of people have strange emotional reasons for doing business. It doesn't work well. Maybe, Jake had said. But my customers keep coming back and they bring their friends. I think that's a pretty good way to do things. The station kept getting bigger. Jake put in more docking bays. He made the living space bigger so that people could stay there for a long time. He made a small school for the few families that lived on the station. There was even a chapel that served people of many faiths, with areas for different religious practices. Crossroads Haven was no longer just a business. It was a group of people. People lived there, had families there, and made lives there. Jake Murphy was the person who saw a broken station and thought it was a home. 5 years after Jake Murphy signed the deed to Crossroads Haven, the station was doing better than he could have ever imagined. The number of permanent residents had grown to almost 200. Every hour of every day, ships came and went. There was a lot of activity in the market section as traders from all over the industry bought and sold things. The hydroponics gardens made enough fresh food for not only the station but also nearby outposts. Most nights, there was a wait at Lisa's restaurant. The medical bay handled everything from routine checkups to life-saving surgeries. Jake had made something real. Something that will last. Something that was important. But success had a way of drawing attention to itself. It began with a guest. Keln was a Theshan information broker who traded in secrets and data. He came on a small, fast scout ship and asked to meet with Jake right away. Jake knew this was serious because his eyes kept darting around and his hands were shaking. They got together in a small conference room that wasn't near the main areas. Keln turned on a privacy field generator before he even spoke, which made Jake's stomach tighten with worry. "Mr. Murphy, I deal in information," Keln said in a low, urgent voice. "It's my job to know what's going on in this field before anyone else. 3 days ago, I got my hands on some business messages that you need to know about." Jake leaned in. "I'm listening." "The Velthorian Merchant Guild is coming back. They want the station." The words hit Jake like a punch. "What? Why now? They left this place 15 years ago. They sold it in a legal way." Keln took out a data pad and slid it across the table. New geological surveys of the asteroid belt. They discovered huge deposits of viridium. We're talking about rare minerals worth billions of credits. This system went from being worth nothing to being one of the richest places in the Outer Rim almost overnight. Jake looked at the survey results on the screen. The numbers were mind-blowing. People used Viridium to make advanced electronics and parts for ships. There was always a lot of demand, but not enough supply. A belt this rich could keep mining going for decades. And they want the station because whoever controls it controls access to the belt, Jake said slowly. That's right. I have seen the legal papers they're getting ready. They say that a mistake in the paperwork made the first sale illegal. According to Valthorian law, the original family can get back property that has been left behind within 20 years. That's not true. I got this place through the Galactic Commerce Registry. Everything was right and legal. I have the deed. Kelm's face was serious. I know. But the Valthorians have lawyers who charge a lot of money and something else. 3 warships and a big business ship. Mr. Murphy, they're not just bringing papers. They're coming with guns. All of a sudden, the room felt cold. Jake leaned back in his chair and thought about all the things he could do. When? 2 weeks. Maybe not as much. Jake carefully looked at the Theshan. Why do you want me to know this? Usually, information brokers don't give away valuable information for free. Kelm looked him in the eye. 5 years ago, I came to this station with a broken ship and no money in my pockets. You fixed my ship, gave me hot food, and told me to pay when I could. You didn't just see me as a business deal. You saw me as a person. That's not something that happens often in this galaxy, Mr. Murphy. I owe you. They shook hands, showing that they were both human and alien, and that they respected each other. Jake sat alone in the conference room for a long time after Kelm left, looking at the survey data.
His job.
His house. The community he had made from scratch. And now someone wanted to take it all away. He turned on his comm. Charlie set up a meeting. Tom, Lisa, Dr. Foster, and anyone else who is a senior crew member. 30 minutes until the conference room. Got it. Jake, is there a problem? Yeah, buddy. A big one. In half an hour, the conference room was full. Tom Briggs stood with his arms crossed near the window. Lisa Martinez sat at the table with a worried look on her face. Dr. Rachel Foster leaned against the wall. She always had her medical bag close by, even during meetings. Other important crew members took the other open spots. Jake stood at the end of the table and said everything. The deposits of Viridium. The claim from the Valthorians. The ships of war. People in the room yelled angrily when he was done talking. They can't just take the station, Tom yelled. We've worked on this place for years. This is where we live, Lisa said, her voice shaking with emotion. We have families here. Kids go to school here. This station has been the center of people's lives. Someone else yelled. What right do they have to come back after all this time? Jake put his hands up to tell everyone to be quiet. It took a little while, but everyone finally calmed down. I know exactly how you feel, so trust me. I'm also mad. But being angry won't fix this. We need to be smart. We need to be ready.
He looked at Tom.
I need you to get all the information we have on station defenses. Everything like weapons, shields, and weak points in the structure. I want to know exactly what we're working with if this turns into a fight. Tom nodded sadly. On it. Lisa, I need you to start quietly gathering supplies. Food, water, medical supplies, anything else you need. Don't scare the people, but get ready for a siege. We need to be able to hold out if they block us. Lisa's face was pale, but she was determined. How long do I need to get ready? At least a month. Maybe longer. He turned to Dr. Foster. Rachel, make sure the medical bay has everything it needs. Everything from trauma supplies to surgical tools. I hope we don't need it, but... Okay, Rachel said softly. You think it will end in violence? I think we should be ready for anything. These are business types. They don't care about people, they care about money. They will try to scare us into leaving if they think they can. What about getting legal help? Tom said. Do you have a lawyer who can help you with this? I'm going to get one. Set up a quantum communication link to Earth, Charlie. I need to talk to someone at the Colonial Legal Office. Please help me find the best lawyer who knows a lot about interstellar commerce law. Jake hardly slept for the next week. He spent his days going over the station systems, checking the defenses, and getting ready. He talked to lawyers and government officials back on Earth at night, trying to build a legal case that would stand up to Velthorian pressure. Charlie helped him find a lawyer named Amanda Pierce. People knew her as someone who could take on big companies and win. Jake saw intelligence and determination in her eyes when her face came up on the screen. "Mr. Murphy, I've looked over your case," Amanda said right away. "Under galactic commerce law, you own it for sure. The deed is in the right place, all the fees were paid, and the deal went through the right channels. Any court in civilized space would rule in your favor." Jake felt a small spark of hope. "So, we can fight this?" "The problem is that the Velthorians will say that their laws for their species are more important than the Galactic Registry. Legally, it's a weak case, but here's what you need to know. They have cash. A lot of it. They can hire a lot of lawyers and file motions and appeals that will make this case take years to finish. Even if you win in the end, the legal system could take so long that they already have control of the station just by being persistent." The hope was gone. "I don't have years. And I definitely don't have the money it would take to fight a company in court for that long." Amanda leaned forward, and her face hardened. "Then we need to make sure this doesn't turn into just a court case. We need to tell everyone about it. We need the media to cover us, public opinion, and political pressure. We make the Velthorians look like bullies who are picking on a loan operator. We make them look like the bad guys. Will that stop them? Companies care about how people see them because it affects how much their stock is worth. Mr. Murphy, people are very good at using public opinion as a weapon. If we do this right, we can make it so costly for them in terms of lost business and damage to their reputation that they give up."
Jake thought about it.
It was a risk, but everything about this situation was a risk. "Okay. What should I do? Write down everything. Write down every threat they make and every illegal thing they do. Make up a story that shows you as the hardworking person who made something out of nothing and them as the greedy company that wants to take it. Ask people you have helped to write reviews. Show off the community you've made. Make people care about what you have to say." "I can do that. That's good. And what about Mr. Murphy? Get ready to fight. These business people don't give up easily, especially when billions of credits are on the line." Jake sat in his office and stared at the wall after the call was over. He was in danger of losing everything he had worked for. But he wasn't going to give up without a fight. He had been in tough situations before. Through hard work and determination, he had turned a broken-down station into a busy one. The Velthorians were going to have to learn something about people if they wanted Crossroads Haven. They were going to learn that people don't just give up when you threaten their home and try to take away everything they've worked for. They fight back. The warning came at the exact time Kellen had said it would. Charlie's sensors saw the ships even though they were still hours away from the station. Jake was in the command center when the alert came in. As soon as he saw the readings on the screen, his heart started to race. "Multiple vessels entering the system," Charlie said in his usual calm voice. "The configuration matches the design of the Velthorian military. 3 destroyer-class warships." Jake looked at the sensor display as the 3 ships came into view from their jump points. They were big, dark shapes covered in armor and weapons. The type of ships made to scare people and use a lot of force. They moved with purpose, taking up positions that made a triangle around Crossroads Haven. Jake could see how their hulls blocked out the stars even from this far away. Tom ran into the command center with grease still on his hands. "Jake, are those what I think they are?" "Warships from Velthoria. 3 of them."
"This is it, Tom.
"They're here." But then Charlie spoke again, and his voice had a tone that could have been worry if an AI could feel that way. "More contact coming from the jump point. Reading in mass is much bigger than the warships." Jake turned back to the screen and felt his stomach drop. The 4th ship came through the jump point like a huge creature coming out of the ocean. It was huge, at least 5 times bigger than the warships. A corporate dreadnought was the kind of ship that big companies used when they wanted to make sure no one would argue with them. There were weapons, shield generators, and sensor arrays all over its hull. The ship didn't just come into the system. It was in charge of it. The dreadnought moved into place over the station, and its shadow fell across the viewports. Jake could see people on the main concourse below stopping to look up at the huge ship that was hanging over them like a dark promise. Tom said quietly, "They aren't playing around."
No.
No, they aren't. Jake's hands became fists. He wanted to scream and rage about how unfair it all was. But getting angry wouldn't help right now. He had to stay calm and stay on task. "Charlie, open a channel to the main ship." Channel is open. The holographic projector in the middle of the command center came to life. The picture that came up was of a Velthorian in fancy robes with jewels and medals on them. His insect-like face was hard for people to read, but Jake had been around a lot of different kinds of creatures long enough to know what it meant. It was just plain contempt. The alien said, "I am Overlord Thexnor of the Velthorian Merchant Guild." His voice came through a translator that made each word sound sharp and clipped. "You will tell who you are." Jake stepped forward so that the hologram cameras could get a good look at him. "Jake Murphy, owner and manager of Crossroads Haven." "Wrong." Thexnor's jaws clicked, which might have meant they were having fun. "You are living on guild property, without permission. Due to a mistake in our administrative systems, this station was sold illegally. We are using our legal right to reclaim family property within the 20-year abandonment window, as stated in Velthorian reclamation law." Jake was ready for this. Amanda had told him what to say and how to respond.
Stay calm.
Be clear. Tell them to put their threats in writing. This station was bought legally, through the Galactic Commerce Registry. I have the deed, which is properly filed and recorded according to registry rules. The fees were all paid. All rules were followed. Under galactic law, your claim has no basis. Law of the Galaxy. Thexnor's tone made the words sound like trash. Galactic law is a made-up idea that species that are too weak to enforce their own sovereignty keep alive. We are from Velthoria. Our laws control Velthorian land. We take what is ours. Then you're going to have a problem, Jake said, keeping his voice steady even though his heart was racing. This station is legally mine, and I'm not going anywhere. Thexnor leaned in closer to his own cameras, and the light made his compound eyes shine. You are one person with a salvage station, held together by spare parts and hope. We have ships of war. We have the legal power of our people. You don't have anything. I have the law on my side. Your law doesn't mean anything here. You have 24 hours to leave this station. Take yourself and your crew away. Grab what you can and leave. We will board by force and remove everyone after 24 hours. We will treat those who resist like pirates and deal with them accordingly. The threat was clear. If you didn't do what they said, they would start shooting. And what if I say no? Jake wanted to know. Then you will find out that Velthorian patience has its limits. We are here to get back what is rightfully ours. It's up to you how much blood is spilled along the way. Thexnor made a move, and the transmission stopped. The command center was quiet except for the low hum of the station systems. Tom's face was pale as he looked at the empty space where the hologram had been. They're really going to do it, he said. They're going to take the station by force. Jake looked out the viewport at his station. People were going about their daily lives below him. A family walked up to the restaurant. There were mechanics working on a ship in one of the docking bays that could be seen. A group of miners stood outside the bar and laughed. Life went on as usual, because most people didn't know what was about to happen. Jake said, "Get everyone to the meeting room. Senior crew, security, or anyone else in charge of leading. We have to make choices, and we have to do it quickly." In half an hour, the conference room was full of people. There was a lot of tension, anger, and fear in the air. Jake stood at the head of the table and made the situation clear. No sugarcoating, no false hope. Only the facts. After he was done, everyone in the room started talking. We can't let them take the station. This is where we live. We made this place. What right do they have? Jake let them talk for a minute before putting his hands up to signal that they should be quiet. I know, but we need to know this. Those are warships from the military. We will lose if this turns into a shooting war. We don't have the weapons or the training to fight them. Do we just give up? Lisa yelled, her voice shaking with rage. Do we give up everything we worked for?
No.
We fight back, but we do it in a smart way. Tom, start closing off parts that aren't needed. I want everyone to stay in the main areas where we can keep them safer. Set up emergency bulkheads and get ready for possible boarding actions. Tom nodded sadly. Lisa, start making plans for the evacuation. Families with kids get to go first on the first ships out. I am not forcing anyone to stay here. We help anyone who wants to leave do so safely. Someone in the back asked, and what about those of us who stay? We get ready for a siege. We keep track of everything they do, every threat, and every crime. We're going to make this so public and clear that they won't be able to hide behind legal loopholes. Rachel Foster spoke up from where she was standing near the wall. Jake, what about help? Is anyone on their way? I have gotten in touch with the Earth Colonial Administration. Amanda is working on the legal and political sides of things. But in reality, help won't get here in time. The Galactic Council takes its time. This will already be decided one way or the other by the time they make a choice. People thought about that reality, and the room got quiet. So, what do we do now? Tom asked. Jake looked at the people who were staring at him. People had faith in him. They had followed him to this outpost and built a community there. Now he wanted them to put everything on the line. We stand our ground. We use all of our legal options. We make a lot of noise. We tell everyone in the galaxy what's going on here. We believe that when people see a company with warships trying to force an independent operator off his legal property, enough of them will care to make a difference. That's a lot of trust, someone said under their breath. Yes, Jake said. It is. But that's all we have right now. Crossroads Haven changed from a place to live to a place to stay for refugees over the next few hours. Families with small children started to leave on ships that were available. Tom and his mechanics worked quickly to seal off parts of the ship and get the emergency systems ready. Lisa set up the distribution of supplies. Rachel got the medical bay ready for possible injuries. But something else happened that Jake didn't see coming. The ships began to arrive. Not going. Coming. The first ship was a mining ship called Big Betty, and it was run by an old miner named Ed Harris. He docked and called Jake right away. Murphy, we know what's going on. We're here to help you. Ed, this could be dangerous. You don't have to. I don't care what you say. You gave me credit when my crew was hungry. You are the only thing that kept us from going under 3 years ago. I'm not going. After that, another ship came.
And one more.
Jake had helped traders. Haulers he had treated fairly. Even a few small mercenary ships whose captains remembered the person who treated them with respect. More than 50 ships had already taken up positions around Crossroads Haven by the time the 24-hour deadline was halfway through. They were not ships of war. Most of them were civilian cargo ships and mining ships. But they were there, and they weren't going anywhere. Jake stood in the command center and watched the growing fleet of supporters. He felt something he hadn't felt in days. Hope. Perhaps they had a chance after all. 3 days had passed since the Velthorian warships backed off from their initial threat. 3 days of tense standoff where nobody fired a shot but nobody backed down either. The massive ships still hung at the edge of the system like dark clouds on the horizon, a constant reminder that this situation was far from over. Jake Murphy had barely slept. He spent his time in the command center, surrounded by displays showing everything from legal documents to news feeds to tactical maps tracking ship movements. His coffee had gone cold hours ago, but he kept drinking it anyway, needing the caffeine even if the taste was terrible. Tom Briggs stood beside him, studying the tactical display with a grim expression. They have moved to Plan B, he said, pointing at the screen. Look at this pattern. They are intercepting every ship that tries to reach the asteroid belt. Jake leaned forward, watching the data. Tom was right. The Velthorian ships had repositioned themselves in a loose blockade formation. Any vessel that tried to enter the belt was being stopped, questioned, and turned away. Mining operations had ground to a halt. Ships that had been working the belt for months were now sitting idle, or leaving the system entirely. They are strangling us, Tom continued. Cannot mine the belt if you cannot get to it. No mining means no business for us. No refueling, no repairs, No supplies being sold. They are going to choke the economic life out of the station without firing a single shot. Jake felt the weight of it settling on his shoulders. That is exactly their play. They learned from the first confrontation. They cannot take the station by force without looking like aggressors in front of the whole galaxy. But they can make it economically worthless. No mining, no trade, eventually no reason for the station to exist at all. And then we have to abandon it anyway just from going broke instead of being forced out at gunpoint. Yeah. Jake rubbed his tired eyes. It is actually smart in a ruthless sort of way. They get what they want and they look like they're following the law. Charlie's voice interrupted their conversation. Jake, you have an incoming priority transmission from Earth. The source is identified as the Colonial Administration Office. Director level. Jake straightened up immediately. The Colonial Administration Office was high up the government chain. If they were calling directly, it meant something significant. Put it through, Charlie. The holographic projector flickered to life, and a woman appeared. She was maybe in her late 50s, with steel gray hair pulled back in a practical style. She wore a sharp business suit and had the kind of eyes that had seen every political game and bureaucratic trick in the book. Her expression was businesslike, but not unfriendly. Mr. Murphy, I am Patricia Coleman, Director of Colonial Commerce Affairs for the Earth Government. I've been following your situation with great interest. Jake tried not to let his desperation show. Ma'am, if you are calling to tell me that Earth cannot help because of political complications or jurisdictional issues. On the contrary, Patricia interrupted, and there was something like amusement in her eyes. I am calling to tell you that you have become very valuable to Earth interests, Mr. Murphy. Jake blinked. That was not what he had expected to hear. Valuable? How? Patricia leaned back in her chair. You see, Mr. Murphy, you have done something remarkable out there. You have proven that an independent human operator can establish critical infrastructure in frontier space. More than that, you have built relationships with dozens of different species. You have created a neutral ground where humans, Velthorians, Karathi, Thessians, and countless others all conduct business peacefully and fairly. I was just trying to run a good station, Jake said, confused about where this was going. Exactly. And that is precisely why you matter. Do you know what the biggest challenge facing Earth expansion into frontier territories is? It is not technology or resources. It is trust. Other species see humans as newcomers, as potential threats. Corporate interests dominate most stations, squeezing everyone for maximum profit. But you? You built something different. You proved that humans can be trusted partners who deal fairly. Tom muttered beside Jake. She is saying you are good propaganda. Patricia must have heard because she smiled slightly. Your engineer is perceptive. Yes, Mr. Murphy, you're very good propaganda. But more than that, you represent a model we want to replicate. Independent operators building sustainable, fair infrastructure. That is soft power. That is how Earth builds influence without military force. Okay, Jake said slowly. So, what does this mean for my situation? It means the Velthorians have overplayed their hand, and we are going to make them regret it. They are disrupting legitimate commerce in a neutral sector. They are harassing independent traders of multiple species. They are threatening a human citizen with economic warfare. That gives Earth legal and political grounds to act. Jake felt hope stirring for the first time in days. What kind of action? We have filed a formal complaint with the Galactic Council. We are demanding immediate arbitration and requesting that the Council issue an injunction against the Velthorian blockade. The Council has agreed to emergency proceedings given the economic disruption affecting multiple species. 7 days until the hearing. Can I hold out that long? Patricia's expression became serious. That depends on several factors. But here's what else is happening. We have been in contact with the Independent Traders Coalition. That is the collective bargaining organization representing thousands of independent haulers and small operators across this entire sector. They are not happy about the Velthorian blockade. Why would they care about my station specifically? Because if the Velthorians can do this to you, they can do it to anyone. Today it is Crossroads Haven. Tomorrow it could be any independent station that sits on valuable resources. The coalition sees this as a threat to all of them. Jake was beginning to understand. So, They're going to put pressure on the Velthorians? They're organizing an economic response as we speak. A complete boycott of all Velthorian commercial interests in the sector. No human trader will dock at Velthorian stations, transport Velthorian goods, or conduct any business with Velthorian companies until your situation is resolved. Tom let out a low whistle. That is going to hurt them. Humans control a huge chunk of shipping in this region. Patricia nodded. Approximately 40% of all freight and transport in this sector is handled by human-operated vessels. The Velthorians cannot afford to lose that market share. Their trade routes are already beginning to collapse. Within 24 hours of the boycott announcement, their stock price dropped 8%. It has continued falling since then. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. You're going to economic warfare with them. Over my station. We are defending the principle that legal property rights must be respected and that corporations cannot bully independent operators through military intimidation. The fact that you are human and this serves Earth interests is certainly a factor, but the principle matters to everyone. The Korathi government has lodged a protest. The Theshan Commerce Ministry has issued a statement supporting your legal ownership. Even some Velthorian opposition parties are criticizing their own government's actions. This is bigger than I thought, Jake said quietly. Much bigger. You started something when you bought that broken station and turned it into a fair, neutral hub. You proved something important. Now we're going to make sure that proof means something. Patricia's image leaned forward slightly. Hold out for 7 more days, Mr. Murphy.
Can you do that?
Jake thought about his dwindling supplies, his worried crew, the ships sitting idle because they could not reach the mining belt. But he also thought about the 50-plus vessels still surrounding his station in support. He thought about every trader who had ever docked at Crossroads Haven and received fair treatment. Yeah, he said. We can hold out. Good. Keep documenting everything the Velthorians do. Every ship they turn away, every threat they make. We are building a case that will be ironclad. And, Mr. Murphy, you are not alone in this. Earth stands with you. A lot of people stand with you. The transmission ended, and the hologram faded away. Tom stared at the empty space where Patricia's image had been. Did that just happen? Did Earth just declare economic war on the Velthorian Merchant Guild because of us? I think they did, Jake said, still processing it all. Charlie spoke up. Jake, I am detecting multiple news network access requests. It appears your situation has become a major story across human space and several other species networks. There are currently 47 different news organizations requesting interviews. Jake laughed, though it came out slightly hysterical. Of course there are. Over the next 48 hours, Jake watched as humanity's real power unfolded across the sector. It was not warships or weapons, though the Earth Navy vessels still hung nearby keeping watch. It was something more fundamental. It was economic coordination. The boycott spread faster than Jake would have believed possible. Human traders simply stopped doing business with Velthorian interests. Shipping routes that had been established for decades were suddenly rerouted. Contracts were put on hold or canceled outright. Within 3 days, Velthorian commercial operations across the sector were in chaos. It was political pressure. Earth diplomats worked the Galactic Council chambers. Korathi representatives spoke about the importance of honoring legal agreements. Even some Velthorian politicians began distancing themselves from Overlord Thexnor's actions, worried about the economic damage and diplomatic fallout. It was public opinion. Jake's story went viral across networks, serving dozens of species. The narrative was simple and powerful. Honest independent operator builds something good, greedy corporation tries to steal it. Images of the ramshackle station that Jake had rebuilt with his own hands. Interviews with traders who talked about Fair Deal Murphy and the fair treatment they had received. Stories of families who had found home at Crossroads Haven. The Velthorian Merchant Guild was bleeding. Their stock continued to plummet. Investors were dumping their holdings. Trade routes were collapsing. And all of it was being broadcast across the galaxy as a cautionary tale about corporate overreach. Jake did interview after interview, telling his story over and over. He kept it simple and honest. He had bought a broken station legally. He had worked hard to rebuild it. He had treated people fairly. And now someone with warships wanted to take it all away because they discovered the system was valuable. It resonated. People understood that story. On the 5th day of the standoff, Amanda Pierce called with an update on the legal situation. Jake, the Velthorians are panicking. I've been contacted by 5 different law firms representing them, all asking about settlement terms. Their legal position is falling apart, and they know it. What are they offering? Right now? Not nearly enough. But they're desperate. The boycott is costing them millions of credits every single day. Their board of directors is furious. There are rumors that Thexnor might be removed from his position. Jake allowed himself a small smile. Good. Let him sweat. Just be ready. Cornered animals can be dangerous. If they think they're going to lose everything anyway, they might try something desperate. That warning proved prophetic. On the 6th day, sensors picked up movement from the Velthorian vessels. They were repositioning, moving closer to the station. Charlie, what are they doing? Unknown. They are breaking their previous formation. New trajectory suggests they may be preparing for aggressive action. Jake's heart raced. Were they really going to attack after all this? With the whole galaxy watching? Then his comm system lit up with an incoming message. It was Overlord Thexnor, and he looked nothing like the arrogant figure from the first transmission. He looked exhausted and desperate.
Murphy, we need to talk. Privately.
Just you and me. Jake glanced at Tom, who shrugged. Could be a trap. Or it could be surrender, Jake countered. Charlie, record everything. Open the channel,